What we're here today to discuss is the incident that happened yesterday with two of Houston firefighters on the southwest side of Houston. While responding to an incident, they arrived on scene to take care of this person that was in need, and what they were met with and what they found underscores the critical nature and the dangerousness of the job that the men and women of the Houston Fire Department deal with every single day. And what happened was they had an incident where an individual took out a gun and pointed it at them, and in fear of their life, then moved over to the balcony and jumped off the second floor. And that's something that is extremely difficult to put into words. What I can say is that I've spoken with both of the firefighters, and what I can also say is that the mayor, thank you to his leadership, has not only been in constant contact with us, but has also spoken with those two firefighters. And I can say that they're going to be okay. One has a broken scapula, one has bumps and bruises everywhere. But when discussing with them, I asked them what they want me to get across to the public. And, you know, men and women of the Houston Fire Department show their bravery every day. And these kind of incidents show that we don't know what it is that we are going to deal with on a daily basis. Our critical mission is to ensure that we are serving the citizens of Houston. We are responding to them on their worst day. And last night should never happen to a member of the Houston Fire Department. We live to serve, and we live to protect the men and women that are in this city. And it is something that I am grateful that we're standing here saying that they're okay. But violence against first responders is and will never be tolerated. And that is something that our society will always stand up against. With that, I want to turn it over to Mayor Whitmire, and I want to thank him for his constant leadership since he has taken office and taking care of the men and women, but also that he's present and that he's spoken with them. And that shows the kind of leader that he has become here in Houston as our mayor.
Thank you, Marty. And I'll echo Marty's comments that last night, two of our heroes, our firefighters, EMS workers, had a very close call. They made a medical call, and it became violent when the person recovering from a seizure was frightened and loaded his pistol. They saw it, and they jumped off a second-story balcony and had a very close call. It could have had a lot different ending. I've been in contact with the firefighters, and they're going to recover, but certainly they're shaken and realize what a close call they have. It just demonstrates, again, that we have a public safety issue in the city of Houston. But we have first responders that are doing their job. So while we're enjoying our family, our rest, we have first responders. Our firefighters are protecting us. So all great cities have adequate fire protection, EMS workers, sufficient equipment, staffing, and leadership that allows the rest of us to live in a very safe and great city. So we have a challenge, but we've got to support. I would urge Houstonians to thank their firefighters, thank their first responders when they see them on the street, because they live in constant danger as they go about protecting the rest of us. So thank you, Marty, for your leadership. Thank the press. I think the press has a job to do to demonstrate very, very closely that first responders have a daily and nightly challenge. And I thank these two officers for their duty. I can't say enough for them, and we're going to do everything we can to get them a contract, the benefits and equipment they need to go about protecting this great city. So this afternoon, we're very thankful that there were close calls. They responded like their training has taught them to de-escalate a situation, but also they had to jump from their lives from a balcony because someone approached them that they were trying to help with a loaded firearm. Probably we believe that the person was coming out of a seizure, was very confused, felt like someone was there to not help but harm him, and he responded to protect, and it's under investigation by HPD, which again shows the cooperation that I want between HPD and the Houston firefighters. They need each other. They've been often led to disputes, but last night they were looking out for each other and looking out for Houstonians. So I think we all have much to be thankful for.
And I just want to say something else in what the mayor just said. In talking with our firefighters, I want to say thank you to the Houston Police Department and the police officers that responded. When they jumped off the balcony, they hit their emergency button and called for what's called a firefighter assist, much like a police assist. And in the words of one of the firefighters that was injured, he said, you know, usually time seems to go and drag on. He said, but by the time I looked up, we had the police officers there, and they took care of the situation from there. That's why public safety in Houston has got to be synonymous when it comes to the work and cooperation. So I want to thank those Houston police officers and the Houston Police Department for that quick response in helping our firefighters. Happy to take any questions for myself, or of course, if the mayor has any questions.
I want to thank Corey Grant and Andrew Hodsberg. They need to be singled out for their heroism last night, and we celebrate that they were rescued and suffered bruises, broken collarbone, but it could have been a lot worse. It demonstrates again the dangers that they encounter on their job, not in just fire suppression and making medical calls, but they have to come in contact with dangers on a regular basis.
Clarification on the injuries. What were the injuries they sustained on each firefighter?
I think there was a lot of bumps and bruises, lacerations, and a swollen leg for one of them. I think it was a broken scapula on another, with a few other injuries. And so I've spoken with both of them, so has the mayor, and they're both recovering at their homes. They were released from the hospital, but you know, they're not going to be back up to working speed tomorrow. It takes time, and also the biggest thing that they told me was, you know, they were scared. You know, firefighters have emotions and feelings too, and they've got families, and it's a situation you don't expect, but the credit goes to them. The quick thinking, you know, they had a couple different options, and those firefighters, the ones the mayor just mentioned, they had to make some quick decisions, and I'm grateful that we're standing here and we're talking about them recovering and not the alternative.
And I want to talk about whenever firefighters go to a scene, going to a shooting or a disturbance, they're waiting for their counterparts in law enforcement to arrive to secure that scene, but to what seems like a routine call, like a seizure, they're kind of going right into it, not necessarily waiting for law enforcement, if law enforcement's arriving at all. What steps do they take? Are they going right into that, not thinking that there's danger?
You know, go ahead.
I'm going to say fight or flight.
Yes.
Their training is to de-escalate a situation. Obviously, their human nature instincts were to preserve themselves, save themselves. It'd be like jumping off that second-story building. You ask about what injuries they suffered: a broken collarbone, bruises, lacerations. But the good news is they're alive today, they're with their families today, and they are ready to serve. But there's mental health issues involved as well. So, like I said, they're our heroes. They protect us while we go about our work and family life, and we need to always be thankful to our first responders and give them, in my responsibility, the benefits and the apparatus and equipment they so badly needed. We're a great city, and we've got to take care of our great first responders.
Did the firefighters share how this changed from responding to a medical call to a situation where they jump out the window? Can you kind of explain the sequence of events there?
You know, we deal with over 1,000 calls, and that doesn't mean just a single unit response. Over 1,000 calls a day. And what we have to encounter are things that we don't know. Look at it from the perspective of if you know your friend, you know where they live, you've been to their house. Imagine getting a call for people that you don't know, and the information that you're provided is what's given to you on the screen. Our job is to protect and to save lives. And so when we get the calls, we look around us, we look for situational awareness, and that's one of the key things that one of the firefighters mentioned to me. You still have a responsibility to save lives. That's what we do. And so it is an ongoing thing that you assess, and you never quite pinpoint when bad things happen, but their senses were up. He heard and saw a few things that caused him some pause, and the second that he saw out of the corner of his eye a gun, and he heard the gun being cocked, that's when he made the decision. And so you never know what's going to happen during a call, but our job is to go take care of you, is to protect and save lives.
They actually were prepared to take him to the hospital, as related to me. He wanted to get one more item out of his bedroom. They heard a pistol being cocked, and that's when they took off for their survival. They were working with the family members. He is coming out of a seizure. He's confused, and they believe he probably thought that they were there to do harm, when in fact they were there to assist him. So they did what most of us would do, just try to follow your training and preserve yourself.
So, Mayor, what can be done to prevent something like this from happening? You talk about tools. Do they need a mental health counselor with them out in the field? What can be done to prevent something like this?
Well, obviously, I don't know the circumstances of the individual's lifestyle or profession or his challenges. There could have been some gang activity was related to me that he felt threatened, that he was being challenged by opposing gang members. We just don't know. It's under investigation by HPD, but we do know 2 of our medics, firefighters, went to a routine call that became very unroutine, and they had to respond accordingly, and we're very fortunate that we're not talking about a worse tragedy. How do you prevent that? You know, we live in a large, diverse city with challenges. There's mental health issues, there's crime issues, and so we have to have the best trained paramedics, firefighters, first responders that we can possibly have. It comes with the recruiting, training, and thanking them and protecting them while they protect us.
Were officers dispatched before they hit that button?
It's not to my knowledge, and Marty may have more info, but they didn't. They were shocked. The firefighters were doing their job that they do hundreds, if not thousands of times a day, prepared to take this very ill individual coming out of a seizure to the hospital. He wanted to get something out of his room. He's still confused. They heard the pistol being cocked, and they ran for their lives, which included jumping off a second-story balcony. They asked for assist. A firefighter, HPD, responded, and it worked the way their training has prepared them for, but we're very fortunate. They're very fortunate.
What type of support are the firefighters being offered in terms of their mental health and physical well-being?
Well, one of the things, the biggest critical components of what we do, as we focused over the last 7 years internally from the union's perspective on mental health, being there to support those if it's a mental health issue, if it's an incident like this, to make sure that they have everything they need to get back up to serve the citizens of Houston. And so from the moment that this incident happened, we've had members of our team, our peer support team, not only be in contact with them, but offer assistance. It's one thing to say, hey, that's probably a pretty scary thing. It's another thing to show up and to do what this mayor is doing. He's picking up the phone. He talked to them personally. He has not only proven that kind of leadership allows our firefighter and paramedics to know that this leader cares. And so we're going to move mountains for the people that we know have our backs. And there's many challenges that we take on, but I can assure you that what the mayor is doing and what we are doing from the association standpoint is strictly focused on the health and well-being of the men and women out there putting their lives on the line every day.
And Marty, is this, we don't hear about this too often, is this a far and few between incident, or are our firefighters and EMS workers being faced with dangers, maybe not exactly like this, but are they being faced with dangers on a daily basis?
The answer is yes, they are. I think this incident highlighted it because of the nature of having to jump off a second floor balcony. We have had incidents over the years that are not unique. And so what we're dealing with is, as the mayor said, a large population, a diverse population, and there's a lot of things that go on that cause firefighters to have to kind of pause a little bit. But again, our job is to save your life. And so we go out there every day hopeful that we come home to our families. But I can tell you it's not a unique incident. It's something that we have to always focus on every day we go to work. And I can tell you that your training is something that we have to rely on.
And no, I would just say, remember, you and I run from danger and from fires. They run toward it to protect us. Look on the freeways when there's terrible accidents. HPD's investigating the accident. Firefighters put themselves between the dangers and the HPD officers. So I just think this is another opportunity for us to realize how valuable our first responders are and to thank them. The administration, I need to thank them. The public needs to thank them. They need to be protected when they're working, and that means sufficient apparatus, equipment, and for certain benefits, and for certain look out for their families when they have a tragic outcome.
We talk about protection and apparatus and whatnot. other than, you know, the tools they have in the truck and a lot of water power, do firefighters in Houston, do they have any form of protection when going to these calls? Do they have any weapons? Do they have any
No, we don't.
pepper spray?
Listen, the firefighter's role is to help. I can tell you, after 23 years of being in the fire service, being a paramedic, I've been in some very, very precarious situations. But what the mayor said, I think, is critical. Our job is to, number one, save lives. Two, to try to de-escalate any situation. When our function and role in the public safety arena is different when it comes to that. We carry medicines, we carry our tools to get you out of a fire, to rescue you, or to save your life if you're having a heart attack or you're in a car wreck, to get you out. But the answer is no, we don't carry the weapons, and our focus is on preserving and saving lives.
Hey, Marty, Marty, talk to us about moving forward. Like, what's, you know, is there some policy you're going to be putting in place? You know, like, what happens from here?
Listen, you can't write a policy for people when it comes to the situations you're talking about. As the mayor mentioned, when you're dealing with some health issues, we don't know yet the full extent. What we can tell and what we're going to focus on today is the fact that we had firefighters who had jumped from a second floor balcony based on the situation that their training taught them was not going to go and was not going well. And so we're excited that we are here today talking about them recovering and not the alternative.
And my message is to Houstonians, let's thank our first responders. When you see them at a store or in the neighborhood, thank them. And number two, to firefighters and our first responders, we appreciate you. I want you to have high morale, because we're here for you like you are for us. And that's, if we do that, that will improve their safety alone. If they just go about their job knowing that we appreciate them, and we're not going to have a divisive environment between City Hall and first responders, particularly the firefighters who have gone through some very troubling times in the last 7 years. I'm here, the city's here, you do your job, and we got you covered.
Hey, Mayor, I see you standing next to the union president. I know Chief Pena said he was outrageous. They call this outrageous, inexcusable. Do you know where he is this afternoon? Why
No.
he's not standing by your side?
Marty and I have reached out to these firefighters and their families. I can't speak for the chief. I know that we've got a job to do. We're doing our job, and so I'll let it go at that. I want all Houstonians to reach out and thank firefighters, police officers, all of our first responders. And I could go through the list of who I consider first responders. Obviously, fire and police. But I think our municipal workers, public works that go out during the freezing temperatures, teachers that show up every day and encounter some very challenging situations. So let's just remember the people that work for us. We need to thank them. We need to make sure they're properly compensated and have the training and equipment that they badly need. So, you know, let's celebrate this outcome. It could have been a lot worse. It is something that they encounter on a regular basis. The dangers when they make a fire, they don't know about gunfire or other alterations, and so that's the reason we train them. And so thank goodness on behalf of all Houstonians that we got two heroes that came out of this could have been tragic situation.
I got one final question.
Looking back at the situation, do you have a history of the home that you arrived to in the sense that this person might have
That's up for HPD. They're investigating as far as what's going on there, so I don't want to get into that. What I do want to focus on is the fact that, you know, an incident took place. We go there to take care of somebody, to medically treat them. That we were going to take them to the hospital, and this unfortunate situation happened. And we're standing here today with two firefighters that are alive, that are recovering at home, and not the alternative. And that is the key takeaway. Yes.
Do firefighters have access to information like that? Because
Yes.
when officers roll up on a scene, they know if this person has.
Yeah, there are ways to look at a particular location if it's been flagged, but that determines a much different conversation than we have time for here today.
And final question for you, just the real brief. Whenever you're being dispatched to a call like a seizure, not something that we know that there's violence involved,
Sure.
right? When those firefighters and EMS, they're going into the home, they're going to the location. Run me through what their mindset is. It more find the patient, treat the patient, or is it, you know, is on the back burner scene safety?
You know, the number one thing they teach you in your training, scene safety. If the first responders, if the firefighters and paramedics, and even police officers, if you're going into a situation where it's not safe, you're not going to do anybody any good. I'm not going to be able to save a life if I'm dead. I'm not going to be able to take care of a patient if my partner's dead. And so scene safety is critically number one. But it also is also something that is ongoing. It didn't just, you don't evaluate when you get there. It's an ongoing, constant evaluation. And one of the things that I want to credit one of the firefighters that the mayor mentioned with is the fact that he said something didn't feel right. They had an obligation to save somebody's life, and they're going to put their lives on the line for other people. But he felt like something may be going on. He stayed focused. In the minute that his observation showed him, and then he heard a gun being cocked, is the second that he made that decision. So it's an ongoing situation, but scene safety is number one.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.
And when they leave to go to work, the first responders, fire and police, they know when they leave their family that shift that they're putting their life on the line. When they leave the station, they know that they're putting their life in jeopardy, and that's a special calling. You know, most of us would not do that. Most of us know when we go to work, we're going to go back home that day. Firefighters, police, and other first responders do not know that. So let's be pleased with this outcome. They survived, but also we owe them a huge thank you for the job they do on a daily basis.
Thank you very
What was
much.
the end result with the patient at the end?
Well, we need to provide an update later on that. I'm not actually sure of the status of that, but I'm happy to follow up and get it to you.
And just how long have they been with the fire department?
One has been there with approximately 10 years, and the other one is relatively new. So, you know, like I said, these emotional things that they deal with on a daily basis is a part of a broader mental health aspect that the mayor has been fully supportive of, that we have been using our own resources to ensure that we're there for the firefighters. But last thing I'll say is this, you know, we have a lot of ex-military members that have served this country, that are serving the city of Houston. We hear a lot about mental health when it comes to the military. When you focus on firefighters and paramedics, we're seeing things that the general public does not, but we're seeing them in the neighborhoods that we live in. We're seeing them with the people that we grew up with. And so it leaves an impression, because most firefighter paramedics can tell you some calls that they've run over their career, and they can vividly tell you some of those components of that call, and it's stuck with them their entire career. So without getting too far into it, what I can say is that it is critically important that, number one, we make sure that the physical wounds are healed, but then we focus on the mental wounds.
Hey, and one last thing. We've mentioned it, but it deserves re-emphasizing. Thanks, HPD, for responding to a firefighter in trouble. I mean, that's the way the system is designed, and it worked last night. Okay?
Awesome.
Thank y'all very much for coming out. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you all.
Appreciate it.